"Don't turn around," I whispered, smiling like I was asking whether he wanted another drink. At 11:47 p.m., the Sterling room still glowed as if midnight had never learned how to enter. Crystal chandeliers scattered warm light across white tablecloths. Rain traced silver lines down the tall windows, and somewhere near the bar, ice clicked softly inside a glass of bourbon. I had worked enough closing shifts to recognize the rhythm of an expensive room. Quiet laughter, low voices, credit cards placed on leather folders without anyone checking the total. But table 9 had changed the rhythm. 6 men sat around it in dark suits, speaking softly enough to make everyone else speak softer. Vincent Moretti sat at the head. I knew his name because Mr. Ross, my manager, had repeated it 3 times before the reservation arrived. Do not interrupt him. Do not ask questions. Do not make mistakes. Vincent did not look like a man who needed warnings delivered on someone else's behalf. He looked calm, almost still. His charcoal suit fit without a wrinkle. His black hair was combed back neatly, and one hand rested beside a glass he had barely touched. The room seemed to adjust itself around him. Servers changed direction before crossing his path. Mr. Ross stopped correcting people whenever Vincent lifted his eyes. Even the pianist played more quietly. I had been serving their table for 40 minutes when I noticed the man behind him. He sat alone near the window with a menu open in front of his face, but he had not turned a page. His coat stayed buttoned even though the dining room was warm. His water glass remained full. Every few seconds, his gaze moved from Vincent to the rear exit, then back again. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. 12-hour shifts did that. So did too much coffee and not enough sleep. Then the man touched the side of his coat, and something metallic caught the chandelier light. My fingers tightened around the check presenter. I looked toward Mr. Ross. He was nowhere near the host's stand. One of the kitchen doors swung closed behind him, and he did not come back out. That was when I heard the stranger murmur into his collar, "The deal is dead." My heartbeat climbed into my throat. I could not call out. I could not point. The man was watching every path to Vincent's table. So I looked down at the itemized bill in my hand. Mineral water, grilled salmon, house salad, aged bourbon, exit coffee, ordinary words, safe words. I uncapped my pen and circled what I needed, letting my body block the page from the window. Gunman, behind you. Deal gone wrong. Exit now. Then I walked. 10 feet had never felt so far. My shoes whispered against the carpet. The rain pressed harder against the glass. Vincent looked up as I approached, his eyes gray and unreadable. I placed the folder beside his hand and forced a professional smile. "Whenever you're ready, sir." He opened it. His gaze moved once across the circles. Nothing in his expression changed. He did not turn around. He did not reach for anyone. He simply lifted his eyes to mine and asked, in a voice calm enough to frighten me more than panic would have, "Is he watching your hands?" I kept smiling. "No, sir." My breath barely moved. "He's waiting for you to stand." Vincent glanced at his untouched bourbon. Then he looked back at me. "In 3 seconds," he said quietly, "drop the glass." I understood before I wanted to. 1. The stranger lowered his menu. 2. Vincent's men stopped speaking. 3. I reached for the bourbon, let my fingers slip, and the crystal struck the floor with a sharp, ringing crack. At that exact moment, every light in the Sterling room went dark. Darkness swallowed the Sterling room before the last piece of crystal stopped moving. For one breath, nobody spoke. Then chairs scraped, someone gasped near the bar, and Vincent Moretti caught my wrist before I could step back. His grip was firm, controlled, and strangely careful. "Down," he said. I dropped behind the table as a sharp crack sounded from somewhere near the windows. Glass broke above us, scattering across the white tablecloth like ice. Vincent did not flinch. He pulled me closer to the floor while the men around him moved with quiet precision. No shouting, no confusion, just commands passed in low voices. "Kitchen route," one of them said. "Blocked," another answered. Vincent looked at me. Even in the dark, I could feel the weight of his attention. "Is there another way out?" he asked. My mind raced through every closing shift I had ever worked. The service corridor, the dry storage room, the delivery door behind the kitchen. "Yes," I whispered. "Follow me." I crawled past the overturned chair, then rose when the emergency lights flickered red along the walls. The room looked unreal beneath them. Faces pale, shadows stretched. The stranger near the window was no longer seated. His open menu lay on the floor. I pushed through the swinging kitchen door, and Vincent stayed one step behind me. His men followed, silent and fast. The kitchen staff had disappeared. Half-finished plates sat beneath heat lamps. A pot hissed on the stove. Somewhere, water ran from an open faucet. "This way," I said, leading them past the walk-in freezer. My shoes slipped once on the tile, but Vincent steadied my elbow before I fell. "Keep moving." We reached the delivery hall, and my stomach dropped. The steel exit door had been chained from the outside. I stared at it. "That is not supposed to be locked." Vincent's jaw tightened. One of his men stepped forward to inspect it. "Inside job," he said. The words landed harder than the darkness had. Before I could ask what they meant, a sound came from the kitchen behind us. Slow footsteps. Deliberate. Vincent moved between me and the corridor. "Is there another door?" "The trash bay," I said. "About 30 feet past the storage cages." We ran. The red lights pulsed overhead as I led them through a narrow passage that smelled like coffee grounds and industrial soap. At the end, I shoved against a dented metal door. It opened into the rain. Cold air hit my face. A black sport utility vehicle waited near the alley, engine running. Vincent guided me toward it, but I stopped when movement near the loading dock caught my eye. The man from the window stepped beneath the security light. He pulled off his cap, and my breath vanished. I knew that face. 3 days earlier, he had stood outside my apartment holding a clipboard, claiming he worked for the electric company. He had asked whether I lived alone. "Claire," Vincent said, sharply. "Get in." I climbed into the vehicle, soaked and shaking. Vincent entered beside me as the doors locked. "You recognize him," he said. It was not a question. I looked through the rain-streaked window as the alley disappeared behind us. "He came to my home," I whispered. Vincent turned fully toward me, and for the first time that night, his calm expression changed. "When, 3 days ago," the vehicle accelerated into the storm. Vincent held my gaze for a long second, then spoke quietly. "Then tonight was never an accident." The city blurred beyond the tinted windows, all rain and red taillights, while Vincent Moretti watched me like he was trying to decide whether I was a witness, a threat, or something worse. I pressed my hands together to stop them from shaking. "He said he was checking meters," I told him. "He wore a gray jacket and carried a company badge. I never let him inside." Vincent looked toward the man seated across from us. "Ethan." The man pulled out a phone without asking another question. He was broad-shouldered, maybe 40, with the tired eyes of someone who had learned never to relax. "Address?" he asked. I gave it to him. My voice sounded too small inside the quiet vehicle. Ethan typed quickly, then turned the screen toward Vincent. Grainy security footage showed the same man standing outside my apartment building. The timestamp read Monday, 6:12 p.m. I remembered carrying 2 grocery bags up the front steps. I remembered him smiling. I remembered how normal he had looked. He asked whether the unit above mine was vacant, I said. Then he asked if my landlord was around. I thought he was trying to sell something. Vincent did not respond. He kept studying the screen. "Go back," he said. Ethan rewound the footage. The man appeared again across the street the next morning. Then Wednesday afternoon. Then earlier tonight, less than an hour before my shift. My stomach tightened. He was watching me. For 11 days, Ethan said. The number seemed impossible. 11 days meant planning. 11 days meant my place on that floor, my assigned section, maybe even the exact table I would serve had not been random. I turned toward Vincent. "Why would anyone use me to get to you?" "That is what I intend to learn." His voice stayed calm, but something beneath it had changed. The vehicle turned into an underground garage beneath a building with no sign. 2 men opened the doors before we fully stopped. I stepped out and found myself beneath bright white lights, surrounded by polished concrete and black vehicles. "Where are we?" I asked. "Somewhere secure," Vincent said. "That is not an answer." His eyes met mine. "It is the only one you are getting tonight." Fear flashed into anger before I could stop it. "I warned you. I got you out. You do not get to treat me like I planned this." Ethan glanced away, but Vincent remained still. For several seconds, the garage seemed to wait with him. Then he removed his coat and handed it to me. I had not noticed how badly I was shivering. "You are not a suspect, Claire," he said. "But someone arranged for you to be near me. And until I know why, going home would be dangerous." I hated that he was right. I hated even more that he knew it. Upstairs, they brought me into a quiet room with a fireplace, a leather couch, and windows overlooking the dark river. It felt less like a safe house than a place built for secrets. Ethan returned with a tablet. "We checked the restaurant schedule," he said. Claire was not assigned to table 9. I looked up. "What?" "Your section was changed 20 minutes before Mr. Moretti arrived." He placed the tablet on the coffee table. The approval carried Mr. Ross's login, but the request had come from an outside account. Vincent leaned forward. "Can you trace it?" "Already did." Ethan paused, and that pause frightened me more than his answer. The account was created using Thomas Bennett's employee identification number. My breath caught. The fire cracked softly behind me. Vincent looked at my face, then at the name on the screen. "Who is Thomas Bennett?" he asked. I stared at the letters I had not seen in 8 years. "My father," I whispered. "And he is dead." The city blurred beyond the tinted windows, all rain and red taillights, while Vincent Moretti watched me like he was trying to decide whether I was a witness, a threat, or something worse. I pressed my hands together to stop them from shaking. "He said he was checking meters," I told him. "He wore a gray jacket and carried a company badge. I never let him inside." Vincent looked toward the man seated across from us. "Ethan." The man pulled out a phone without asking another question. He was broad-shouldered, maybe 40, with the tired eyes of someone who had learned never to relax. "Address?" he asked. I gave it to him. My voice sounded too small inside the quiet vehicle. Ethan typed quickly, then turned the screen toward Vincent. Grainy security footage showed the same man standing outside my apartment building. The timestamp read Monday, 6:12 p.m. I remembered carrying 2 grocery bags up the front steps. I remembered him smiling. I remembered how normal he had looked. He asked whether the unit above mine was vacant. I said. Then he asked if my landlord was around. I thought he was trying to sell something. Vincent did not respond. He kept studying the screen. "Go back," he said. Ethan rewound the footage. The man appeared again across the street the next morning. Then Wednesday afternoon. Then earlier tonight, less than an hour before my shift. My stomach tightened. He was watching me. For 11 days, Ethan said. The number seemed impossible. 11 days meant planning. 11 days meant my place on that floor, my assigned section, maybe even the exact table I would serve had not been random. I turned toward Vincent. "Why would anyone use me to get to you?" "That is what I intend to learn." His voice stayed calm, but something beneath it had changed. The vehicle turned into an underground garage beneath a building with no sign. 2 men opened the doors before we fully stopped. I stepped out and found myself beneath bright white lights, surrounded by polished concrete and black vehicles. "Where are we?" I asked. "Somewhere secure," Vincent said. "That is not an answer." His eyes met mine. "It is the only one you are getting tonight." Fear flashed into anger before I could stop it. "I warned you. I got you out. You do not get to treat me like I planned this." Ethan glanced away, but Vincent remained still. For several seconds, the garage seemed to wait with him. Then he removed his coat and handed it to me. I had not noticed how badly I was shivering. "You are not a suspect, Claire," he said. "But someone arranged for you to be near me. And until I know why, going home would be dangerous." I hated that he was right. I hated even more that he knew it. Upstairs, they brought me into a quiet room with a fireplace, a leather couch, and windows overlooking the dark river. It felt less like a safe house than a place built for secrets. Ethan returned with a tablet. "We checked the restaurant schedule," he said. Claire was not assigned to table 9. I looked up. "What?" "Your section was changed 20 minutes before Mr. Moretti arrived." He placed the tablet on the coffee table. The approval carried Mr. Ross's login, but the request had come from an outside account. Vincent leaned forward. "Can you trace it?" "Already did." Ethan paused, and that pause frightened me more than his answer. The account was created using Thomas Bennett's employee identification number. My breath caught. The fire cracked softly behind me. Vincent looked at my face, then at the name on the screen. "Who is Thomas Bennett?" he asked. I stared at the letters I had not seen in 8 years. "My father," I whispered. "And he is dead." By 1:30 in the morning, the storm had softened, but nothing inside me had. I sat at the edge of the leather couch with my father's note on the table and Vincent Moretti standing near the windows, speaking quietly into his phone. He had already arranged security for Lily, a second vehicle outside our apartment, and a private place for us to leave the city before sunrise. He had done all of it without asking me. "No," I said. Vincent ended the call and turned. "No, to which part?" "All of it." Ethan stopped near the doorway. Vincent's expression remained calm, but the room seemed to tighten around him. Your sister is being moved somewhere secure. My sister is 17 years old, and she is asleep in our apartment. You do not get to move her like a piece on a board. Someone used your father's identification to place you beside me tonight. They watched your home for 11 days. This is not a situation where I wait for permission. I stood and removed his coat from my shoulders. The warmth left me immediately, but I folded it carefully and placed it on the couch. You survived because I made a choice, I said. Do not repay me by taking every choice away from me. Ethan lowered his gaze. Vincent did not. He crossed the room slowly, stopping several feet away. I am trying to keep you alive. Then tell me the truth instead of giving orders. His jaw tightened. For 1 second, I saw the man everyone at the Sterling room had feared. Then I saw something else. Restraint. Not weakness. A decision. He reached into his pocket, removed my phone, and held it out to me. I had not realized Ethan had taken it in the vehicle. I accepted it without looking away. Call your sister, Vincent said. Explain what happened. Ask her what she wants to do. The change was small, but it mattered. I called Lily. She answered on the 4th ring, sleepy and irritated until she heard my voice. I kept the details simple. A dangerous man had followed me. Our father's old work might be connected. We needed somewhere safe for the night. Lily went silent, then asked the question I had been avoiding. Is Dad's name finally going to be cleared? I looked at Vincent. I do not know yet, I said, but I am not leaving until I find out. After the call, Vincent opened a cabinet and removed a map of the Chicago area. He spread it across the table. The storage company was in Evanston, he said. The building changed owners twice, but the original records may still exist off-site. Then we start there. You are not going. I placed both hands on the table. You just returned my phone because you understood the problem. Do not make me explain it again. Something almost like disbelief crossed Ethan's face. Vincent studied me for a long moment. You speak to everyone this way? Only men who confuse protection with ownership. The fireplace crackled behind us. I expected anger. Instead, Vincent pulled out the chair opposite mine and sat down. Fine, he said. You come with us. You stay beside Ethan. You follow the safety plan. I will listen to the plan. That is not the same as following it. It is the best offer you are getting. For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile, but close enough to change his whole face. Then Ethan set an old digital record on the table. We found the storage account, he said. Thomas Bennett did not list Claire as the beneficiary. My relief vanished. Who did he list? Ethan looked at Vincent before answering. Vincent Moretti. The name on the record sat between us like a locked door. Vincent did not touch the paper. He only stared at it. And for the first time since I met him, his silence did not feel powerful. It felt personal. Why would my father name you? I asked. I do not know, he said. That answer is becoming expensive. Ethan pulled up the original storage agreement on his tablet. The account had been opened under a numbered corporation, but the emergency release clause named Vincent in full. There was also a note from my father. Release only if Claire remembers Sunday breakfast. My throat tightened. He knew I would be involved. Or he hoped you never would be, Vincent said. Dawn was still hours away when we left for Evanston. Lily had agreed to stay with a trusted neighbor until Ethan's people arrived. I sat in the back of the vehicle beside Vincent, watching empty streets slide past beneath yellow lights. He did not try to speak for several miles. Then he said, Your father requested a meeting with me twice. I turned toward him. You said once. The first request went through Derek Vaughn. The name meant nothing to me, but Ethan's eyes lifted toward the mirror. Vincent continued. Derek managed internal security at the time. He told me Thomas was unstable and trying to hide theft. And you believed him? Yes. The honesty landed harder than an excuse would have. My father died because nobody listened. Your father died because someone was afraid of what he knew. Vincent looked out the window, but I allowed another man to decide whose voice deserved my attention. The vehicle grew quiet again. By 3:10 in the morning, we reached a storage records facility behind a row of closed auto shops. The building smelled like dust, cardboard, and old heating vents. A tired clerk verified the release documents, then led us to a narrow archive room lined with metal shelves. Box 418 sat on the highest row. Inside were restaurant receipts, freight invoices, and small notebooks filled with my father's careful handwriting. Nothing looked important until I noticed the circles. A breakfast receipt from a diner in Oak Park had 4 words marked in blue ink. North, Locker, Lake, 12. Another receipt carried a date. Another held a 6-digit number. I spread them across the table, arranging them the way my father used to arrange puzzle pieces on Sunday mornings. It is an address, I said. Ethan entered it into his phone. Private locker facility near Lake Michigan. Vincent picked up the final receipt. On the back, my father had written one sentence. Trust the man who admits he failed you. My eyes moved to Vincent. He read it too, but he did not defend himself. He simply set the receipt down. Your father gave me more faith than I earned. We drove to the second facility as the sky began turning gray. The locker opened with the 6-digit number from the receipts. Inside was a ledger, a flash drive, and a sealed envelope with my name. My hands trembled as I opened it. Claire, if you are reading this, the man beside you is not the one who betrayed me. The real danger is the person who controls what he sees. Below the message, my father had written one name. Derek Vaughn. Ethan went still. Vincent's face hardened. Then my phone rang. Lily's name appeared on the screen. I answered immediately, but it was not my sister's voice that spoke. You found the ledger, Derek said calmly. Now bring it to me if you want Lily to come home. Do not touch her, I said, and the steadiness in my voice surprised even me. Derek gave a quiet laugh through the phone. Bring the ledger to the abandoned freight terminal on South Harbor Drive. Sunrise. No police. No extra vehicles. Vincent reached for the phone, but I stepped away. I need to hear Lily. There was a pause, followed by a rustle and my sister's frightened breathing. Claire, she whispered. I am here, I said. Are you hurt? No. I am scared. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Listen to me. You are coming home. Derek returned to the line. 1 hour. Then the call ended. Vincent was already issuing orders to Ethan. Vehicles. Entry points. Surveillance. A direct approach with enough people to seal every exit. His words came fast and cold, each one built around force. I stared at the address Ethan had pulled up on his phone. The freight terminal sat beside the river, with 3 loading bays and a service tunnel beneath the eastern lot. Something about the layout felt familiar. Stop, I said. Vincent continued speaking. I said stop. The room went silent. He looked at me with the expression of a man who had never been interrupted twice. Derek wants you to arrive exactly the way you are planning to arrive, I said. He knows your procedures. He created them. Ethan studied the map again. She is right. Vincent's gaze remained on me. Explain. I pointed to the main entrance. He will leave this open because he expects you to see it as the obvious route. The loading bay will look unguarded. The service tunnel will appear hidden, which means your team will choose it. And you think that is the trap. I think all 3 routes are meant to keep your attention away from where Lily actually is. I remembered the Sterling room. The open menu. The untouched water. The false exit locked from outside. Derek did not hide danger. He arranged the room so people would choose it themselves. There is a maintenance office across the river, I said, pointing to a narrow structure on the satellite image. It overlooks the terminal and has a separate utility road. He can watch every entrance from there. Ethan enlarged the image. A small vehicle was parked beside the building. Registered to a shell company connected to Vaughn's security, he said. Vincent's expression changed. Not anger. Recognition. He expects me to lead with power, he said. Then do not. The words hung between us. Vincent stepped closer, stopping at a respectful distance. What are you proposing? You let Derek see what he expects. 1 vehicle. The ledger. You walking through the main entrance. And you? I stay off-site with Ethan and control. The timing. Vincent shook his head. No. Then Lily stays exactly where she is while Derek waits for you to prove how predictable you are. His jaw tightened. I could see the struggle in him, the instinct to command fighting against the truth he already understood. You are asking me to trust a plan built in 5 minutes, he said. No, I answered. I am asking you to trust the woman who saw the first trap before anyone else did. The first gray light of morning touched the warehouse windows. Vincent looked at the ledger in my hands, then at Ethan, then back at me. What if your plan fails? He asked quietly. I held his gaze. Then trust me the way I trusted you in the dark. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Vincent removed the radio from his coat and placed it in my palm. Tell me where to stand, he said. The abandoned freight terminal looked almost peaceful beneath the pale morning sky. Rusted loading doors faced the river. Wind moved through the empty lot, carrying the smell of rain and cold concrete. From the maintenance office across the water, I watched Vincent walk alone toward the main entrance with the ledger in one hand and nothing else visible. Ethan stood beside me, listening through an earpiece while 3 trusted men waited out of sight along the utility road. No one moved without my signal. That was the part Vincent hated most. I could hear it in the controlled sound of his breathing over the radio. 10 more feet, I whispered. He obeyed. Derek stepped into view near the center of the terminal, wearing a dark coat and the calm expression of a man who believed every outcome belonged to him. You came alone, he called. You asked me to, Vincent answered. I searched the building through binoculars. 2 open loading bays. 1 office window. No sign of Lily. Then I saw movement in the reflection of a parked truck, not inside the terminal, but behind the maintenance building where Ethan and I stood. My pulse jumped. Derek had expected us to find this location. The office was not our advantage. It was another layer of the trap. Ethan, I whispered, someone is behind us. He turned without panic and checked the security monitor. A man in a delivery uniform was approaching the rear door. Ethan signaled his team, but I stopped him before they moved. Wait, look at what he is carrying. The man held a ring of keys and kept glancing toward a white utility van beside the fence. The van rocked slightly. I knew before I could prove it. Lily is in that vehicle. Ethan studied the screen, then nodded. We can reach it quietly. On the radio, Derek told Vincent to place the ledger on the floor. Vincent did not move. Claire, he asked, as if my name were part of the negotiation. Stay where you are, I said. Do not challenge him yet. Every instinct in Vincent wanted action. I heard the pause. Then he listened. Ethan's men intercepted the driver without noise, opened the van, and found Lily inside, frightened but unharmed. The moment Ethan said, "She is safe," my knees nearly gave way. I pressed the radio closer. Vincent, now. He set the ledger down, but instead of stepping back, he spoke loudly enough for Derek to hear. It is over. Lily is already free. Derek's confidence broke. He looked toward the river, then toward the maintenance office, realizing the room no longer followed his design. Ethan and I crossed to the terminal with Lily protected between 2 men. When Derek saw the evidence copied onto multiple drives and the financial records already sent to federal investigators, his expression emptied. You think paperwork changes anything? He asked. Vincent moved toward him, anger held so tightly it seemed to cool the air. For one terrible second, I thought he would return to the law he had always known. I stepped beside him. My father died for the truth, I said. Do not bury it beneath another body. Vincent looked at me, then at Lily, then at the ledger. Slowly, he stepped back. Ethan called the authorities. Derek was taken into custody under the weight of records, names, dates, and signatures he could not intimidate into silence. As the sun rose over the river, Vincent handed me my father's letter. His name will be cleared, he said. Publicly. I looked at the man who had ruled every room by refusing to yield. That morning, he had won because he finally chose to step back. 3 months later, the Sterling room belonged to me. Not completely. The bank owned most of it, and Lily liked to remind me that the espresso machine had cost more than our first car, but my name was on the paperwork. Claire Bennett, co-owner. The words still felt borrowed. After Derek Vaughn was charged, the records cleared my father's name. The newspapers printed corrections too small to match the accusations, but my mother framed every one of them anyway. Vincent arranged for the stolen funds to be returned, along with the money my father should have received. I accepted only what the law said belonged to our family. When Vincent offered more, I refused. He did not argue. That was how I knew he had changed. He stopped sending cars, stopped placing guards where I could see them, stopped appearing without warning. For 12 weeks, I heard about him only through Ethan, who visited twice for coffee and once to return my father's watch. Vincent gave me space so completely that some nights I wondered whether I had imagined the way he looked at me beside the river. Then, on a quiet Thursday after closing, the front door opened. Rain whispered against the windows, softer than it had that first night. Vincent stepped inside alone. No dark vehicles outside. No men clearing the room ahead of him. Just a charcoal coat, tired gray eyes, and the kind of stillness that no longer made me afraid. We are closed, I said from behind the bar. I saw the sign. Then you have already ignored one boundary. I can leave. The answer came without challenge. He actually turned toward the door. Vincent. He stopped. I hated how easily his name changed the room. Sit down. He chose table 9. Of course he did. I poured coffee instead of bourbon and carried it across the polished floor. He looked around at the fresh paint, the new lights, and the framed photograph of my father near the register. You rebuilt it, he said. I changed it. There is a difference. Rebuilding puts everything back the way it was. I set the cup before him. I had no interest in doing that. He nodded as though I had said something he needed to remember. For several minutes, we spoke about ordinary things. Lily had started college applications. My mother was sleeping better. Ethan had developed an unhealthy loyalty to our blueberry pie. Vincent told me he had replaced half his leadership team and created an independent review process so no single person could control what reached him again. There was no promise in his voice. No attempt to impress me. Just facts, offered without defense. When the coffee was gone, I placed the bill on the table. His eyes dropped to the circled words. No Gunman. No deal. You can stay. He read them twice. Then he looked up. Is that an order? No. I pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. That is the difference. Something quiet moved through his expression. Relief, maybe. Or gratitude. The kind powerful men rarely admit they need. Outside, the rain continued falling over Chicago, turning the windows silver. Inside, Vincent Moretti waited for my choice instead of making it for me. I had once saved his life by telling him when to leave. That night, I changed both of ours by asking him to stay.